2 million years ago, something was watching your ancestor from the tree line. It was not a lion, not a wolf, not anything your brain has a category for. It stood 10 feet tall. It weighed over 1,000 pounds. Your ancestors shared a world with things that should not have been survivable. No claws, no fangs, no armour. Thin skin that tears on rock, bodies built for nothing except thinking and running, and they were not even fast enough for the running to matter most of the time. They walked into ecosystems ruled by creatures so catastrophically overbuilt for killing that the only honest question is not how so many of our ancestors died. It is how any of them lived. These are 8 of the predators they were never ready for. They get worse as the list goes on. The last one made the ocean itself into a weapon. Gigantopithecus, Asia, 2 million to 300,000 years ago. The reason this one opens the list is not because it was the deadliest, it is because it was the most personal. Gigantopithecus was a primate. Its closest living relative is the orangutan, which means somewhere deep in its biology it carried echoes of the same lineage your ancestors carried. It had hands. It had a recognizable face. It walked with a posture that would have looked, from a distance, almost familiar. It was 10 feet tall and weighed over 1,000 pounds. 4 times the mass of a modern gorilla. Its jaw was wide enough, and its molars dense enough to grind through bamboo and hard root material that would shatter a modern human's teeth. It was not a dedicated hunter of humans. It did not need to be. A 1,000-pound primate competing for the same forests and food sources as early hominins in Southeast Asia did not need to hunt them. One territorial display ended the competition permanently. Early humans did not challenge it. They did not fight it. They moved. Every single time. The thing wearing a version of your face owned every forest it entered, and your ancestors knew it the moment they saw it. Smilodon, the Americas. 100,000 to 10,000 years ago, upper canines 11 inches long. People imagined those teeth as weapons. They were not weapons. They were instruments. Smilodon's jaw muscles were built for precision over raw crushing force, opening wide, finding the throat, then driving those blades through the windpipe in one controlled and deliberate strike. 900 pounds of animal with forelimbs built like biological hydraulics, designed to pin struggling prey flat against the ground while it finished the work. When the first humans crossed into North America, Smilodon was already embedded in every major hunting corridor on 2 continents. It had been ambushing prey along the same game trails for thousands of years. Humans arrived, unfamiliar with the landscape and unfamiliar with the rules. They walked those trails without knowing what had already claimed them. Andrewsarchus, Asia, 45 million years ago, the largest terrestrial mammalian predator ever confirmed to have existed. Skull nearly 3 feet long, 6 feet at the shoulder, 12 feet from nose to tail. Its teeth could crack bone, shear through muscle, and crush shell in the same bite. It was not a specialist built for one type of prey. It was a generalist taken to its absolute ceiling, capable of eating almost anything, outrunning most things, and simply overpowering the rest. It predates direct human contact by millions of years. It is on this list because it represents what predatory engineering looks like when evolution is given enough time and no meaningful constraints. Everything that came after it was working in its shadow. Cave hyena, Europe and Asia. 300,000 to 11,000 years ago. Larger than any hyena alive today. Bite force exceeding 1,000 pounds per square inch, enough to collapse the femur of a woolly mammoth. It hunted in coordinated packs. It competed directly with Neanderthals and early modern humans for caves, for stored kills, for territory. Bone deposits across European cave systems tell the story plainly. learned that human campsites meant food. They came for the stored meat, and they stayed for everything else. A coordinated pack could clear a campsite of its provisions, its tools, and its people in minutes. And unlike most predators on this list, the cave hyena lived alongside humans long enough to learn their patterns. If this is the kind of content that pulls you in, I make videos like this regularly, and I would genuinely appreciate it if you subscribed. Megalania. Australia. 50,000 years ago, a monitor lizard 23 feet long and over 1,300 pounds. The largest venomous land reptile that has ever lived. Its method was borrowed from modern relatives, but scaled into something else entirely. One bite. Anticoagulant venom enters the bloodstream. Then Megalania simply waited. The prey bled internally, weakened across hours, and eventually stopped moving. Megalania arrived before it was finished. When the first humans reached Australia, this animal had never encountered a primate in its entire evolutionary history. It had no fear response mapped to the human shape. It registered something warm, slow-moving, and unaware of the rules. And it followed. On a continent that already contained marsupial lions, giant predatory birds, and reptiles the length of cars, Megalania was the top, and the people who stepped ashore walked directly into its territory without a single piece of knowledge that would have helped them. Short-faced bear. North America. The Pleistocene. On all fours, its shoulder stood 6 feet from the ground. A 6-foot man could look it in the eyes without raising his chin. It weighed over 1,500 pounds, the mass of a compact car, and it could run at 40 miles per hour, as fast as a racehorse, with a shortened skull that concentrated jaw force through the same mechanical principle as bolt cutters. Bone crushed under its bite the way dry chalk breaks under a thumb. Its nasal cavity was so developed it could detect living prey from miles away. There was nothing on the North American plains it could not outrun, outbite, or find. Some researchers believe this single animal delayed human colonization of the continent by thousands of years. Not glaciers, not ice sheets, not climate. One bear, so catastrophically overbuilt that an entire species rerouted its expansion around it. Purosaurus. South America. 8 million years ago, a crocodilian 40 feet long and 18,000 pounds with the highest confirmed bite force ever recorded in any vertebrate, 7 tons of pressure per square inch. Its skull was 5 feet long. It did not wait at the water's edge the way modern crocodiles do. It was large enough to move through shallow water and pursue prey onto land. River crossings in its territory were not dangerous. They were final. It predates human presence by millions of years. It belongs on this list because the fear of crossing water, the instinct that something beneath the surface is tracking you, that is not modern anxiety. That reflex is older than our species. Purosaurus is part of what built it. Megalodon. The oceans. 23 million to 3.5 million years ago. 60 feet long. Estimated at 50 tons. Teeth 7 inches tall with serrated edges, generating bite forces between 25,000 and 40,000 pounds per square inch. It did not ambush from concealment. It accelerated from depth, from below and behind, and the force of the impact was often enough before the bite even registered. Whales. Large sharks. Anything in open water. When humans eventually reached coastlines and began using the ocean, Megalodon was gone. But the dread of open water, the specific feeling of floating above something you cannot see, of the surface feeling thin, of depth feeling like threat, that did not come from nowhere. Something earned that fear over millions of years of pressure on every creature that entered the ocean. Something that made the water itself feel like it was watching. Our ancestors survived all 8. Not because they were stronger, not because they were faster or better armoured or more dangerous. They survived because they passed what they learned forward without resetting it. One generation discovered that fire held things at the edge of the dark. The next generation started with fire already in their hands. One group built a weapon that worked. Every group after inherited that design and improved it. Evolution moves in generations. Culture moves in years. The predators had millions of years of refinement behind them and no way to accelerate. Our ancestors had something that had never existed before in the history of life on this planet. Knowledge that compounded. And compounding, given enough time, beats everything. Gigantopithecus is gone. Smilodon is gone. The cave hyena, Megalania, the short-faced bear, gone. Every name on this list is extinct. And their disappearance follows the arrival of humans on each continent with a consistency that is difficult to explain away. The most overbuilt killing architecture this planet ever produced could not outlast the one species it should have ended without effort. Off the coast of South Africa, great white sharks have been observed abandoning feeding grounds entirely when orcapods enter the area. They dive deep. They go elsewhere. Scientists tracking them have watched sharks flee to depths that offer no food, no warmth, no shelter, fleeing a threat that is not even actively pursuing them. Old fear. Encoded so deeply that the trigger does not require the presence of actual danger. The predator does not need to exist anymore. The memory of it runs the behaviour. Your ancestors carried that same kind of memory, the darkness at the edge of the firelight, the feeling of being watched from the tree line, the specific dread of water you cannot see the bottom of. Those are not irrational fears. They are receipts, paid for over millions of years by the ones who came before you and barely made it through.